My worst fears are that we cause significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
You have an incredible amount of power at this moment in time. Why should we trust you?
You should.
Since the launch of ChatGPT, OpenAI has become one of the most powerful and valuable technology companies on the planet. But what's happened behind the scenes is far stranger than most people realize. From an internal attempt to remove its own CEO, to a quiet but dramatic shift away from the principles it was founded on, OpenAI's story is full of contradictions. This isn't just the story of a company. It's the story of where AI came from, where it is right now, and where it might be heading next. Sam Altman was born on April 22, 1985 in Chicago, and grew up in the St. Louis area. He has said that one of the defining moments of his childhood came when he received his first computer, an Apple Macintosh, at around 8 years old. It wasn't just entertainment. The computer pulled him into a world of code, curiosity, and endless possibilities at a very young age. He attended John Burroughs School, an elite private school in the St. Louis area. And by all accounts, he was already the kind of person who stood out. He was ambitious and unusually certain that technology would be the center of the future. He was also openly gay at a young age. Altman has spoken about coming out while still in high school, and the experience seems to have shaped the way he thought about social systems, authority, and the cost of challenging the norm. After high school, he went to Stanford to study computer science. This was the mid-2000s. Silicon Valley was entering a new era. The iPhone had not even launched yet, but people could already sense that the next wave of computing would be ubiquitous. Altman didn't want to just watch that happen. He wanted to build inside it. So in 2005, after about 2 years at Stanford, he dropped out and co-founded a startup called Looked. The idea was simple and ahead of its time. A mobile app that let people share their location with friends. Today that sounds normal. At that time it was a bet on the future. Smartphones barely existed in the form we know them. There was no app store. Convincing users to share their live location also required a level of social trust that the market had not really developed yet. Looked was one of the earliest companies funded by Y Combinator, the startup accelerator that would later become one of the most powerful institutions in Silicon Valley. Paul Graham, one of Y Combinator's founders, took notice. That relationship would change Altman's life. Building Looked was brutal. Altman has described that period as intense and exhausting. It raised serious money and attracted carrier deals, but the market never fully arrived in the way they expected. Years later, Altman admitted that the pessimistic view had won. Instead of using location sharing as a core social behavior, most users just wanted to sit back and consume content. In 2012, Looked was acquired by Green Dot for roughly $43 million. It was not the kind of win that turns a founder into a legend overnight. But it proved that Altman could survive a hard company and come out of a mediocre outcome with his reputation stronger than before. And that was the beginning of something much bigger. After Looked was sold in 2012, Sam Altman was only 27 years old. During the years building Looked, Altman had spent time inside Y Combinator. Y Combinator had already helped launch companies like Reddit, Airbnb, Dropbox, and Stripe. Paul Graham had been watching Altman. Graham once described him with a striking observation. Sam is extremely good at becoming powerful. Paul also said, you could parachute Sam into an island full of cannibals. Come back 5 years later, and he would be the king. In 2011, Paul Graham invited Altman to join Y Combinator as a partner. At the time, Y Combinator was already one of the most powerful startup accelerators in the world. Inside this system, Altman started building relationships with almost everyone. And every time a company from Y Combinator became successful, Altman's network expanded further. In 2014, Paul Graham stepped down from leading the organization. He chose Sam Altman as his successor. Altman was just 29 years old. He was now the president of the most powerful startup accelerator in Silicon Valley. Under Altman's leadership, Y Combinator grew rapidly, but by the early 2010s something had changed. In 2012, a breakthrough paper by Geoffrey Hinton and his team demonstrated that neural networks could recognize images with unprecedented accuracy. The results shocked the research community and triggered a surge of interest in deep learning. For people paying close attention, it looked like the beginning of a new technological wave. Altman was one of those people. One day Sam went hiking with his friends near San Francisco. One of them started a conversation about intelligence and machines. As the discussion unfolded, Altman shared his thoughts, which were kind of unsettling. He said, "Humans often assume our intelligence is unique. But what if it isn't? What if intelligence is simply a system that can eventually be recreated and improved by machines? If machines could eventually surpass human intelligence, the consequences could be enormous." Altman later described the concept in simple terms. Humans process information slowly. Compared to computers, our brains have extremely limited input and output speed. Machines, on the other hand, could theoretically scale far beyond those limits. If artificial intelligence kept improving, there might come a point where it outperformed humans in almost every cognitive task. This concept had a name: artificial general intelligence. Sam Altman wasn't the only one in Silicon Valley thinking about where this was heading. Another tech figure had been speaking about the dangers of artificial intelligence for years: Elon Musk. Musk had repeatedly warned that AI could become a threat to humanity if developed without proper safeguards. At the same time, Google had quietly become the dominant force in AI research. Through acquisitions and internal research teams, Google had assembled some of the best AI talent in the world. One of their major divisions, DeepMind, was already producing impressive results in machine learning. If one company controlled the most powerful AI systems, what would stop them from dominating the entire technological landscape? Altman and Musk both believed that scenario was dangerous. But instead of avoiding the problem, they came to a different conclusion. If AI was inevitable, someone needed to build it responsibly and make sure that it didn't fall into the wrong hands. And so in 2015, a group of Silicon Valley leaders gathered for a dinner. Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Greg Brockman, Ilya Sutskever, Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, Jessica Livingston. Together they would launch a company with a promise to develop artificial intelligence openly and safely for the benefit of humanity. Everyone in the room understood that AI had enormous potential. But they also understood the risks. The group began discussing that what if they created a new AI organization that would compete with companies like Google. Instead of maximizing profit, the organization would focus on developing AI for the benefit of humanity. That idea became the foundation of a new company. They called it OpenAI. OpenAI officially launched in December 2015. The organization was structured as a non-profit research lab, something extremely unusual in Silicon Valley. Most technology companies were built around venture capital and aggressive growth strategies. Altman, Musk, and other backers collectively announced plans to commit up to $1 billion to support the research. The organization also attracted some of the most respected minds in artificial intelligence. One of the most important hires was Ilya Sutskever, a highly regarded machine learning researcher who had previously worked at Google Brain under Geoffrey Hinton. Sutskever became OpenAI's chief scientist and one of the key technical architects behind its early work. Meanwhile, Greg Brockman took on the role of leading engineering and operations. And Sam Altman, despite still running Y Combinator, became one of the central figures guiding the company's strategy. OpenAI's first office wasn't really an office. The team initially worked out of Greg Brockman's apartment in San Francisco. Researchers sat at kitchen counters, couches, and spare beds. Despite the ambitious vision, no one was entirely sure what direction the company should take. One of OpenAI's early projects involved training AI agents to play video games. The idea was simple. If an AI could master complex games, it might eventually learn how to solve real-world problems. OpenAI created an AI system capable of competing in the popular esports game Dota 2. At a major esports event in 2017, the AI system defeated a professional player in a one-on-one match. But even with these successes, OpenAI still lacked a clear path to building the kind of system they ultimately wanted. At the time, AI systems were still extremely narrow. Each system had to be trained separately for each task. Human intelligence was fundamentally different. Humans could learn across many domains. OpenAI wanted to build something closer to that. But the technology needed to make it possible hadn't arrived yet. That would change in 2017, when a small team of engineers at Google published a research paper that would completely reshape the future of artificial intelligence. In 2017, a research paper from Google changed the trajectory of the entire field. The paper was titled, "Attention is All You Need." It introduced a new neural network architecture called the transformer. Before transformers, most language models processed text sequentially. They would read words one by one, remembering context as they moved forward through a sentence. That method worked, but it was slow and limited. Transformers solved this problem using a mechanism called attention. Instead of reading text step by step, the model could examine an entire sentence or paragraph at once and determine which words were most important to understanding the meaning. This made it more efficient. Transformers could be trained on enormous amounts of unstructured data. That meant you no longer needed carefully labeled datasets for every task. Instead, you could simply feed the model massive quantities of text from the internet and let it learn patterns on its own. The entire internet suddenly became training data. Although the transformer architecture had been developed at Google, OpenAI quickly recognized its potential. Inside OpenAI, Ilya Sutskever and his team began experimenting with the technology. Their goal was to build large language models capable of generating human-like text. This is where the GPT series began. GPT stood for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. The idea was straightforward. First, the model would be pre-trained on massive datasets gathered from the internet. This allowed it to learn. Then the model could be fine-tuned for specific tasks, such as answering questions, writing, or generating code. In 2018, OpenAI released GPT-1. It was impressive but still limited. The real turning point came a year later with GPT-2. GPT-2 was significantly larger and more capable. But the model also raised serious concerns. OpenAI worried the system could be weaponized, capable of scaling harm at an unprecedented level. So in 2019, they refused to release the full GPT-2 model to the public. This decision surprised many people. Critics pointed out something uncomfortable. If the technology was too dangerous to release publicly, then perhaps it was also too dangerous for a private organization to control. Still, the controversy generated enormous attention. OpenAI became one of the most talked about organizations in artificial intelligence. There was another problem though. Back in 2015, Elon Musk had pledged up to $1 billion to fund OpenAI. That funding was supposed to secure OpenAI's independence, allowing it to compete with giants like Google. But by 2018, tensions had been building behind the scenes. Elon had grown frustrated with OpenAI's direction. He believed the company was falling behind Google, and at one point he even proposed taking control of OpenAI himself, potentially merging it with Tesla. But the board refused. And just like that, the relationship collapsed. In 2018, Elon Musk stepped down from OpenAI's board. And when Elon left, so did his money. Out of the $1 billion he had promised, only a fraction had actually been delivered. Now OpenAI was trying to build one of the most expensive technologies in human history without the funding to sustain it. And companies like Google and Facebook had virtually unlimited resources. So in 2019, OpenAI made a decision. It created a new for-profit entity. OpenAI would keep its non-profit parent organization, but it would create a capped profit company underneath it that could raise money from investors. Investors could earn returns, but those returns would be capped at 100 times their investment. And OpenAI was about to receive one of the biggest investments in the history of artificial intelligence. In 2019, Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI. The partnership gave OpenAI access to Microsoft's Azure cloud computing infrastructure. That partnership caused raising of new questions. OpenAI had originally been created as an alternative to big tech dominance in AI. Now it is working directly with one of the largest technology companies in the world. And within a few years, OpenAI released a product that suddenly introduced artificial intelligence to hundreds of millions of people. A product that triggered the largest AI boom in history. On November 30, 2022, Sam Altman posted a short message on X. Today we launched ChatGPT, try talking with it here. Inside OpenAI, employees described the release as a research preview. They even made bets about how many users would sign up in the first week. The highest estimate was around 100,000 users. But they were completely wrong. Within 5 days, more than 1 million people had started using ChatGPT. Within 2 months, the number reached 100 million users, making it the fastest-growing consumer application in history at the time. For comparison, Instagram took about 2.5 years to reach 100 million users. TikTok took about 9 months. ChatGPT did it in 8 weeks. For the first time, ordinary people could directly interact with a powerful AI system. And many of them were shocked by how capable it felt. Chatbots had existed before, but they were usually frustrating and limited. They followed rigid scripts and often failed if a user asked a question in an unexpected way. ChatGPT was different. It could understand context and respond in a much more natural way. Instead of following a fixed script, it generated responses dynamically. But of course, the system wasn't perfect. The model sometimes produced incorrect information, something researchers called hallucinations. But even with these flaws, ChatGPT felt like something new. For the first time, millions of people could clearly see what modern AI was capable of. Till this time, other technology companies had realized that artificial intelligence is going to be the next platform. Google, which had dominated internet search for 2 decades, suddenly faced a new threat. Instead of searching the web, people were now asking from an AI system directly. Within months, Google accelerated development of its own chatbot technologies, eventually launching Bard. Later renamed Gemini, Meta, Amazon, Anthropic, and dozens of startups began investing heavily in large language models. ChatGPT's explosive success also transformed OpenAI's relationship with Microsoft. In January 2023, Microsoft announced an additional $10 billion investment into the company. The partnership allowed Microsoft to integrate OpenAI models into its own products like GitHub Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot, and Bing Chat. As OpenAI grew more powerful, internal tensions were also growing. Some employees believed the company was pushing AI technology into the public too rapidly. At the same time, the competitive pressure from other companies was intense. If OpenAI slowed down, another company might take the lead. And so in November 2023, OpenAI's board would suddenly make a decision that stunned the entire tech industry. Sam Altman had become the public face of the AI revolution. But inside OpenAI, something was going wrong. A divide had been forming within the company. On one side were the people focused on moving quickly. On the other side were researchers focused on AI safety. Some of the people most concerned about safety had already left. In 2021, several former OpenAI researchers and leaders, including Dario Amodei and Daniela Amodei, went on to help build Anthropic, a rival AI company built around the argument that powerful models needed more cautious development. At the same time, Ilya Sutskever had become increasingly aligned with the safety side. Ilya was not just another researcher. He was a co-founder, chief scientist, and one of the most respected minds in the field. If someone like him was becoming alarmed, that was a serious sign. On Friday, November 17, 2023, Sam Altman received a message from Ilya Sutskever. Ilya asked Altman to join a video call. Altman expected it to be a routine meeting. Instead, he found several members of OpenAI's board waiting on the call. He joined the call. And Sam was removed as CEO of OpenAI. No clear accusations or any detailed explanation. They said Altman had not been consistently candid in his communications with the board, and that they had lost confidence in his ability to lead the company. Another issue involved a disagreement with Helen Toner, one of the board members. Toner had published a research paper suggesting that the rival company, Anthropic, had been more responsible with AI safety than OpenAI. Altman reportedly tried to remove her from the board after the paper was published. At the same time, Altman had been pursuing several large projects outside OpenAI. One of them involved raising billions of dollars to build a global network of AI chip factories. Another was WorldCoin, a project that attempted to create a global digital identity system by scanning people's irises. What happened next made the situation even more dramatic. Almost immediately after Altman's removal, support for him began pouring in from inside the company. OpenAI's president and co-founder Greg Brockman resigned in protest. Then dozens of employees began posting messages online expressing their support for Altman. A letter circulated among OpenAI employees demanding the board reverse its decision. If Sam Altman was not reinstated as CEO, the employees would leave the company. Nearly all 800 employees signed the letter. The board technically controlled OpenAI, but if the staff walked out, the company would effectively collapse. And then another powerful player entered the story. Microsoft made a surprising announcement. If Sam Altman did not return to OpenAI, Microsoft would hire him instead. The company said Altman and Greg Brockman would lead a new advanced AI research team inside Microsoft. Microsoft also offered jobs to all the OpenAI employees. If the employees left and joined Microsoft, OpenAI would lose its entire workforce. Within a few days, the board realized they had lost control of the situation. One of the key figures behind Altman's removal had been Ilya Sutskever. As the employee revolt gained momentum, Ilya suddenly changed his position. He signed the same letter as the employees demanding Altman's return. He publicly posted a message: "I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions." With that, the balance of power completely shifted. The board had lost support from employees and investors. Just 5 days after being fired, Sam Altman returned as CEO of OpenAI. Several board members who had pushed for Altman's removal were replaced and a new board was created. Greg Brockman also returned to the company. Just 6 months later, Ilya lost his board seat and left OpenAI. The attempted coup had failed. And in many ways, it had made Altman more powerful. OpenAI's ultimate goal has always been something far more ambitious than chatbots. The company is trying to build artificial general intelligence. Unlike traditional AI systems that specialize in a single task, AGI would be capable of performing almost any intellectual task a human can do and potentially doing it better. Sam himself has repeatedly argued that advanced AI could help eliminate poverty, cure diseases, and create an era of abundance where machines handle much of the world's labor. But he also admits the risks are real. He has said publicly that it would be crazy not to be a little bit afraid.
It's weird when people think it's like a big dunk that I say I'm a little bit afraid, and I think it'd be crazy not to be a little bit afraid.
Governments around the world have begun investing heavily in AI development. In 2025, the competition intensified when a Chinese AI company called DeepSeek released powerful new models that rivaled leading American systems. This made China a serious competitor to other AI companies. OpenAI accused DeepSeek of improperly using its technology, which many people mocked as deeply ironic. Meanwhile, the relationship between Sam Altman and Elon Musk has continued to deteriorate. The two men were once co-founders of OpenAI. Today they are rivals. Musk has repeatedly criticized OpenAI for abandoning its original mission. At one point, Musk even joked that the company should be renamed Closed AI. But in 2026, something happened that made those criticisms much harder to dismiss. For years, OpenAI was the untouchable titan of Silicon Valley. But on February 9, 2026, the mask officially slipped. OpenAI announced they were beginning to test ads within ChatGPT, a move Sam Altman had famously labeled a last resort only a year and a half prior.
I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model.
This wasn't just a minor update to the user interface. Incorporating ads is a silent admission that the most valuable private company on Earth is finally running out of oxygen. Internal documents suggest that OpenAI is projected to lose $14 billion in 2026 alone, a burn rate nearly 3 times worse than the estimates from early 2025. Despite hundreds of billions in investment, the company is trapped in a financial black hole. They expect to lose a total of $44 billion before they ever see a cent of profit in 2029. However, many analysts believe they won't make it that far. With the current rate of spending on data centers and Oracle contracts, the bank of OpenAI could officially hit zero by mid-2027. Instead of the AGI that was promised to solve the world's problems, the company is pivoting toward AI meme slop and translator apps just to stay relevant. Even their closest allies are beginning to jump ship. Microsoft, once OpenAI's most vital partner, has signaled a clear shift toward self-sufficiency. Under the leadership of Mustafa Suleyman, Microsoft is distancing itself, while giants like Apple and Salesforce have already ditched OpenAI in favor of Google's Gemini. ChatGPT's market dominance has plummeted from a peak of 86% down to nearly 60% in a single year. Sam Altman's career has always been defined by grand promises. Whether OpenAI survives or becomes the greatest cautionary tale in tech history remains to be seen, but the era of their undisputed reign is over. Every year AI models become larger, faster, and more capable. They worry that the first truly superintelligent machine could change the balance of power between humans and technology forever. Artificial intelligence could become the most transformative technology humanity has ever created, or it could introduce risks we are only beginning to understand. And if you haven't already, go watch my video on WeWork. It's a wild one.